Cage of Souls by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This is his take on dystopian sci-fi with just a touch of fantasy. The human population has fallen to where everyone lives in a single city, either as part of the social elites or in the underground. Now, separate from the city, there is an island prison, and when we start this book, the narrator, Stefan Arvani, is on his way to that prison. Now, I buddy read this with Jordan, the boiled jellyfish, so I'm going to do something a little bit different with the review today. I'm going to give my review, and then we're going to cut to his review, and after that, we might even have a spoiler discussion between the two of us. Either way, I'll make sure to have chapter markers in the video so you can jump to any part of the video that you want to see. So without wasting any time, let's get into the review, and the first thing I have to start with is this is one of my favorite covers. So blue and black covers get a lot of attention, and deservedly so. I love them. But the vibrant greens and just the jungle atmosphere that this cover portrays is absolutely brilliant, and it perfectly matches Tchaikovsky's world building. Speaking of world building, it's one of Tchaikovsky's strengths in my experience. He always has very unique and vivid worlds that are like nothing else you've seen before. Now, in this world, it takes place far into the future, where human population has dropped to about 100,000. So they've caused countless animal species to go extinct and have put themselves on the verge of extinction. And they look back at this time as kind of the time of the ancients, when it was a golden age of technology and knowledge, and they are baffled by the things we're able to do now. They're basically just living in our ruins, and they have no idea how any of it works or functions, so they can't fix anything, they can't enhance anything. It's just all waiting for the technology to die out and waiting for humans to die out. But like a wise man once said,
life finds a way.
The world, or the earth, wants life to continue, but it's kind of done with humans. Humans have done enough damage to the earth. It's ready for the human species to be gone and new species to come in. So it keeps churning out new adaptations and evolution and just new species left and right, to where the world has become very hostile to humans, and new things are popping up that can not just survive but thrive in what the world has become. But I feel that description kind of lacks something, so I'm going to pull from an excerpt from this book and have Tchaikovsky himself describe what the world looks like. The sun is dying slowly and wreaks havoc on us as we circle around it. Our world is being changed and poisoned, and everything that was is passing. We ran out of resources and space and will. Now we sit in a single city and play games while the world is hammered on the anvil of the sun. It was believed by ecologists 9 generations back that the living world was being destroyed by this hammering. This theory ended the serious study of the science. It is wrong. Every time I ventured into the jungle, there has been a new ecology waiting for me. Evolution works in our jungles almost fast enough to see. As the world becomes unlivable, so life throws up things that can survive in it, faster and faster. One ancient theory was that the planet was aware, a great living world mind. If so, then that mind has woken up. Life is teeming in the world as never before, changing and changing in the hope of finding a form that can last. And it is not just insensate animal urges that are being churned up by this flood. There is intelligence out there. We are no longer alone. Basically, it's very clear that the world is just trying to get rid of humans at this point, and it's only a matter of time before the last of us die out. There's even one character who he thinks the greatest achievement in human history will be to be the last person alive. And he's perfectly happy speeding everyone else up on their journey. So that adds a bit of a thriller kind of feel to this book at times. Before I move on to the other characters, I want to describe what this island looks like, because the imagery that Tchaikovsky paints here is fantastic. So you have an ocean, and then the ocean runs into this landmass that's a huge jungle with a river or a creek or a stream running through it. And as you wind through that stream, eventually you get to this opening, and in the center of the opening of water is this floating swampland that the prison is on top of. And this land, it's only floating because of human technology. And as I mentioned, humans at this point don't know how the technology works. So it's only a matter of time before that technology fails out and this whole prison just sinks. Moving on to the characters, they are all very different and distinct with different motives. You have people that are trying to be the last man alive.
Some men just want to watch the world burn.
You have someone who's trying to transform themselves into not being a human anymore so that they can survive what the world is becoming. Then you have some people that are actively trying to save the world. They're trying to do whatever they can to actually restore the world to a place where humans can live. You have people that are trying to just stay true to themselves and live out the remainder of their life the way they can. They don't know if the world's going to end today, tomorrow, 100 years from now, but they don't want to think about it. They're just going to go about their business and live life on their own terms. But then you have other people that they're power crazy and they want to still be the most powerful person and have everyone reporting to them and basically under their thumb and be a god of the humans that are left. And one of those characters is the marshal on the prison, which in a lot of ways, he reminds me of a more ruthless version of the warden from Cool Hand Luke.
Failure to communicate, sadistic cop in sunglasses with no name.
Every time he came up in the book, that was the character I was visualizing. And then you even have characters that are trying to distance themselves from humanity physically and emotionally. They're not trying to change who they are, but they're just trying to get away from the city, get away from the prison, don't have any interactions with people. They think maybe if I check out, I can live my peaceful life and learn how to live in the world as it is right now. And then you have other characters that are trying to figure out, are they human? Where do they fall on that line of clone versus robot versus cyborg versus human? And they're just seeking their humanity. And all of this is told from the unreliable narration of Stefan Arvani, who has this to say about himself. My life is strung on a series of fortuitous absences. I have made my mark on history in a series of Stefan-shaped holes, and live to write this account. At the same time, this is not the account of a reliable witness, only the speculations of a man who was not there. So in his own words, you can't trust anything he's writing. He was not there. He didn't see it. So the whole story that you're getting, you have to kind of question it as you're reading it as to how true is it, because it's told from the person who missed everything. As for the plot, well, I feel the plot is actually the weakest part of this book. But when you're talking about a standalone novel that has this rich world building that's trying to do and a bunch of character development that's happening with a fairly large cast, something has to give. And in this case, it's the plot. Now, you do have some subplots about how Stefan ended up on the island and how different characters ended up there. They all kind of tell their story here or there on what brought them to the island, or what were they doing before the island, or who are they, or who were they when people actually remembered who they were. But besides that, the only true plot, I guess, is people dealing with the world coming to an end, or human society coming to an end, and how they're going to live out their last days. So it's not that exciting of a plot, but again, the characters and the world building are fantastic. Or I should say the characters are fantastic. The world building is immense. If there's a weakness in the world building, it's just that he ran out of pages to keep building the world that he's describing. That it seems so rich that it also feels like things are missing at points because he's covered so much ground. Now, to end this review, I want to talk about the two things that I didn't like about the book. The first was the pacing. Started off really well and it ends really well, but it does have a couple flashbacks where Stefan is telling his story of how he got to the island. In particular, the first flashback, which happens probably about 20% into the book, he even says something along the lines of, I'm going to pause this story now and explain how I got here. And to me, that was like a car screeching coming to a halt. Now, it wasn't that the flashbacks were particularly boring or anything like that. It was just, again, this is a standalone novel. It has limited time. And every time you have a flashback, well, now you're in a new part of the world, new cast of characters, a new subplot. So it's a lot to have to relearn in a limited amount of pages. And I was really enjoying the story that was going on at that point. Obviously, you couldn't have this whole book without the flashbacks, but it really, again, slammed on the brakes for me as far as my enjoyment. It took me a while to get back into the story. The other thing that bugged me is there is a character in this book whose name is Faith. And I did not understand her role in the plot at all. It feels like she was meant to be a metaphor, and if that metaphor was faith and religion, I didn't get it. It didn't make sense to me at all. If it was meant to be something else, it went entirely over my head. So that character shows up and is mentioned quite a few times and made to be a big deal, and I have no idea why she was included at all. So those are my two criticisms. Overall, I gave it 4.5 stars. This is one of my favorite sci-fi novels, one of my favorite standalones, and probably my second favorite Tchaikovsky book behind only Empire in Black and Gold. So great book that I definitely recommend. Now, on to Jordan's review.
Hey, what's up, folks? Jordan the Boiled Jellyfish, and as you folks probably already watched, you watched Patrick Ryan's Cage of Souls review. Now it's time for mine. I'm going to try and be short and sweet. So, Cage of Souls, it's about a gentleman, Stefan, who recounts his story of how he left a specific city. Actually, I can't remember off the top of my head, but basically the city is all based around this weapon of mass destruction right in the middle. And there's about 100,000 human lives that live here. Anyways, Stefan gets shipped off to a prison island, and he is recounting his story of how he got there and how he plans to escape. And that's the premise of the story. There's so many odd things here and there that are thrown all over the place, but that's the general overline of the story. This book takes place on Earth, which I personally think is millions and millions of years into the future. The reason why I think this is they mention the human race. Like, for example, humans went underground, and some, like, not all of them, but some humans went underground. They got buried in, and then all of a sudden these weird mutated creatures start coming up that are actually which were humans, just mutated. They got long limbs. They're cannibals, carnivores, all that type of stuff. And for that to happen, that takes millions and millions of years to happen. And another reason for why I think it's millions of years in the future is there's a character that shows up in the story that definitely came from a different timeline, and he is insanely tall, but everyone else is shorter. So that would also indicate that the human race has gotten shorter through the years. So that's my argument. This book is set millions of years into the future on Earth. The sun is changing life form on the planet. It's bloated, it's diseased. The world is dying. Humanity is dying. And all these new species are being created and showing up. And that's what makes this book very unique, is the world building. But it's also its biggest weakness. The reason being is this is a 600-page book. Adrian Tchaikovsky excels in world building. I think that's his strongest trait as an author. Mind you, I've only read Shadows of the Ep. This is my first standalone by him. But in saying that, where it's a standalone, that's where it struggles the most. I think the book needs more page count because of the world building. It's so unique, it's so diverse. But I find with standalones, the ones that really do well in my head when it comes to world building is ones that where my brain kind of fills in the gaps. For example, The Martian. It's on Mars. My brain can fill that in. That's pretty easy. Project Hail Mary, it's on a spaceship. It's also pretty easy. Ready Player One, it uses all these pop culture references that I know through growing up. That kind of fills in space in my head as well. But Cage of Souls, where it's so unique, so diverse, it needs more page count to really amplify the beauty of Tchaikovsky's world building. The narrative is really unique. Stefan's point of view, which is our main character, he's retelling his story. So it's obviously biased. He cherry picks who he has his conversations with during his retelling. And that's actually brought up at the end of the book for him cherry picking things that he wrote about. And also the narrator, David Thorpe, did an absolute stellar job of this this book. I'm going to be looking more under that narrator because he was absolutely stunning. He's probably amongst one of the greatest narrators I've ever listened to if he keeps up the same amount of work that he's done on Cage of Souls with other works. Like I said, short, quick review. I really enjoyed it, but my biggest fault is it needed more page count for world building. And also, Adrian Tchaikovsky, I think I don't have a high enough IQ to really understand everything that he's going on with. I can't explain more into this until we get into the spoiler talk with Patrick. But I really wish my mother listened to like Beethoven or something while I was in her belly. Maybe I would have understood it more by that. So anyways, Cage of Souls, 4 out of 5 stars. This is a very rambly review, but me and Patrick will talk more about the nitty-gritty of Cage of Souls with our discussion. Perfect. Thanks, guys. See ya.
Thanks for sticking around till the end. Hopefully you enjoyed both of our reviews. Let us know in the comments if you've read this book. What did you think about it? And if not, is this one that sounds interesting to you? And just throwing it out there, what's a standalone sci-fi or fantasy novel that you would recommend we pick up? And until next time, bye.